Nicholas and Annie, twins, always enjoyed fall. They enjoyed the cornfields, the corn mazes, the pumpkins, the weather, and even the changing of the leaves. They always would play games in the cornfields any chance they got. Living in Pennsylvania, especially in farm country, there was an abundance of cornfields, so they never had to play the same field twice. However, the farmers never would take too kindly to them playing in their fields, and they always tried to avoid fields that would have scarecrows. For some reason, scarecrows always unnerved them. There was always something off about them, like at any second they could come to life and get you. But sometimes you just can't avoid playing in the cornfields that house those creepy bastards. On this late October afternoon, Annie and Nicholas did just that, and it was, to their dismay, that these events transpired. Leaving their house, the running to the nearest cornfield for a little bit of afternoon shenanigans, Nicholas and Annie stopped dead in their tracks. They quickly realized this cornfield housed a scarecrow, but they decided it was well worth it. As they ventured into the cornfield, immediately they grew uncomfortable. They had a feeling that at any moment, something was going to come around the corner and grab them. Nicholas spoke to Annie.
I don't think we should be here, Annie. There's something not right.
The sound of disembodied laughter from children could be heard. Annie looked at Nicholas and said,
"What was that?"
Nicholas responds,
I don't know, Annie, but we need to get out of here now.
They were not very deep in the cornfield at this point. They began to run, and it seemed they had been running for ages, but not making any progress in getting out of the cornfield. The children's laughter surrounded them. Both of the twins were running away from the disembodied voices trying to escape, but no matter where they turned to, the voices seemed to be all around them. The voices whispering,
Don't go that way. Follow us.
but the children were not paying attention to them. They thought that if they just kept running in a straight line, they would have to reach the other side. The field was not that big, and they had been running for quite some time. Finally, they came to a clearing, and in the center sat a malevolent-looking scarecrow. It just sat there looking down on them. It seemed to be daring them to run, just so he could chase them down.
But scarecrows can't come to life.
Nicholas thought to himself.
We're just lost in a cornfield, close to dusk. It's causing our imaginations to run wild.
Out of breath, both of the children collapsed at the foot of the scarecrow. Nicholas looked up at the ugly thing smirking at it and asked,
What in the hell are you looking at, buddy?
Annie asked Nicholas.
What is going on here? Why can't we find the way out of this field? We've done this thing 1,000,000 times before, and we never had a problem.
This is a new field. That's all. We'll find our way out, Annie.
Annie yelled.
Really? You're just going to pretend like you didn't hear all that fucking laughter and the voices? So you're just going to pretend like this is all absolutely normal? Like we're just skipping through a fucking field of daisies?
You don't have to be so snarky, Annie. Why do you always have to be so emotional? The situation is no different from any other time we've done this. We just need to get up and start moving. We'll eventually come to the way out. It's not like we're locked here with some supernatural being. Let's go. We can't stay here all night.
Nicholas proclaimed. The scarecrow's hand grasped Nicholas by the hair and pulled him up to meet his face. With a sinister grin, the scarecrow pulled the knife off his belt, plunged it into his stomach, and slowly pulled it left to right. As Nicholas's intestines fell to the floor, the scarecrow tossed him aside like he was a toddler. Training his focus on Annie, the scarecrow slowly removed itself off the pole. that held him up. Annie started to run. Once again, the spirits started to surround her.
This way. Go this way. He's going to get you. No, you're going the wrong way. Follow us.
The disembodied voices commanded her to follow them, but she just assumed this was just another trap set by the cornfield, and continued to run in a straight line. She kept running and running. The next thing that she knew, she was back in the center of the cornfield. She was now face to face with a thing that just killed her twin brother. She spun around and tried to run, but it grabbed her hair. He ran the blade across her throat. After both the kids were dead, the scarecrow removed both the hearts and consumed them, going back to his perch to look over the land once more. Now that he had his sacrifices, this land would prosper and flourish for another year, as well as no harm would come to this land. Such was the pact of the ancestors of this land had made with him all throughout the years ago. Now that the children were dead, they could see the spirits of the other children that were in the field.
We were trying to help you, not hurt you. If you had just listened to us, we could have shown you the way out. Now, just like us, your souls are doomed to wander this field for all time.
Nicholas and Annie both did not believe they were trapped in the cornfield, so the spirits of past sacrifices escorted them to the boundary of the cornfield. As the children tried to escape their new prison, they noticed in the distance their parents running up to the house of the person who owned this land. Annie and Nicholas's parents were in a desperate search for their kids. The furious pounding on the farmer's door. John, the farmer, answered the door.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins. What can I do for you this evening?
Have you seen our kids? Miss Jenkins exclaimed in a panicked tone. She states, "You know what time of year it is? We have not had the lottery yet." John cursed.
Oh, shit. Them were your youngins? Well, I saw 'em enter my field a while back. I tried to stop 'em, but once they crossed into the Veneers' domain, their fates were sealed.
A man awakens in a dark room, zip-tied to a chair, yet he does not remember how he got there. He assumes that the throbbing of his head may have something to do with the reason. As he sits there, in the darkened room, his mind slowly begins to recall the events that led him to his unfamiliar place. James walked into his boss's office, superstar, Travis Murphy. This man ruled the law firm. No case was too big or small for him to take on. It simply didn't matter. He had never lost, and he would do anything to keep that streak alive.
What took you so long? I would have aged 10 years if you hadn't moved any slower. Pick up the pace. I could find your replacement by day's end if not.
Travis remarked. James looks down at the floor, his demeanor stiff and cowardly.
Sorry, Mr. Murphy. It will not happen again. I'll make sure to move quicker.
James whispered.
You're pathetic. You know that, right? You've worked as my personal secretary for years, yet you show no freaking backbone. Do you have no ambition to move up in this company?
Travis harshly laughed.
Pathetic.
Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. I will keep that in mind, sir. May I be excused, sir?
James fearfully spoke. His boss was clearly in a bad mood. It was always best to keep your head down and fly under his radar when he was irrational like this. Getting to work on his daily task, he kept the thoughts of what his boss had said in the back of his mind.
He is not that pathetic. He has a wife, children and is very happy. So what if he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth? This is what he has to do in order to put food on the table and to keep his family clothed. Does this fucking bastard not realize that words hurt? Seriously, sticks and stones may very well break bones, like we're taught as children. However, words can be very hurtful too. The pen is mightier than the sword. This has always been one of my favorite quotes. The reason for this is that the words have started wars as well as ended wars. They've saved lives and ended lives. Now, to hear this fuck throwing insults around and then telling me how to live my life, someone needs to put this smug asshole in his place.
James thought to himself. The phone begins to ring as he is lost in deep thought. He mindlessly answers the phone for the 100th time that day. He immediately hears the familiar voice of his sister.
Katie, how are you? This is a nice surprise.
He says. He quickly realizes that she is crying, which snaps him out of his thoughts. James' tone of voice is full of concern when he speaks again.
Well, what's wrong, sis?
On the other end of the phone, Katie sobs, her words caught within her throat as she struggles to catch her breath.
Lexi is dead.
She manages to say. These 3 words shattered James's world. He loved his niece dearly, and she was only 15 years old.
How did it happen?
She was hit by a car on her way home from school. The driver fled, and he crashed his car not far from where he had hit her. The cops realized that he was drunk when they got to him.
His sister spoke once more. This time, she had just a little bit more composure. The line quickly disconnects. James looks up to see his boss towering over him.
What do you think you're doing? You know personal calls are prohibited and not to be made during work hours. Are you stupid? Or do you just want me to fire you today?
I didn't make the call, sir, but I did just get news that my niece has been killed in a hit and run today. I need to go home to be with my family, Mr. Murphy. Is that okay with you, sir?
James spoke. Tears welled in his eyes as he tried to keep his composure. His boss's eyes clouded with anger.
Is that okay with me? No. No, it is not okay with me, you moron. Do you know why I came out to see what your pathetic ass was doing? It's because I just had to answer my own phone like some kind of common lawyer. We have a new case. A government official's son has been in a car accident. He hit some stupid child and is facing some serious charges. You will need to work overtime today.
James stands up, his face mere inches from his boss's. He has to try and do something for once. Travis looks him up and down, his expression changing from anger to one of pure amusement.
You really think you matter to me at all? This is a high-profile case, and with that comes money and prestige. Also, you're fired, so clean out your desk, get your pathetic, cowardly presence out of my face and out of my office. If you're still here in 30 minutes, then I'll have security throw you out on your ass.
James, feeling defeated, cleans out his desk and leaves. He did not have much to clean out, therefore it took him a total of 10 minutes. He realized that he still had his access card upon leaving the building.
Fuck it.
He shouted. He would turn the stupid thing in when they called about it. First, he needed to go be with his sister. Over the next week, James did not concern himself with finding a new job or even giving his boss a second thought. He spent the time making arrangements and being with his sister at the trial. Finally, the day came. The evidence was open and shut. The cops found the kid in the car, drunk off his ass, with the James's niece's blood on the car. However, he said he was not the driver, and the cops found him in the passenger seat blacked out. There was no evidence of a second person in the vehicle. The jury went back and deliberated for less than 20 minutes. They came back with a verdict of not guilty. This sent James into a rage. He knew his former boss had done illegal shit to pull this off. It was the last straw. James went home after he dropped his sister at her house and managed to get her to sleep. He considered getting drunk, yet the more he thought about it, the more he realized this bastard needed to learn that his actions have consequences. James got into his car later in the night, only to notice that it is 6 o'clock in the morning. No one would be in the office for another 2 hours except Travis. That man always got there promptly at 7 o'clock. It took James about an hour to get to his former place of employment. He saw that Travis had indeed already gotten there upon his arrival. He took out his old access card. He hoped that they had not yet deactivated it. James slid the card in the slot. The red dot quickly turned green, allowing him access.
Thank God.
He thought.
It still works.
He went to the elevator, pressed the button for the top floor of the massive structure, and waited for the doors to open. The elevator ride took maybe 5 minutes to complete, the gears grinding as the metal container moved up every floor before coming to an abrupt halt. The door slid open, and he quickly stepped out. He could hear his boss blasting his classical music, which he had always played when he was hard at work on a difficult case. James grabbed his first heavy object that he could find before creeping into his boss's office. James, full of rage, smacked Travis in the back of the head as hard as he possibly could. Travis fell out of his chair, rolled over on the floor, and saw the face of his former secretary. As Travis's vision began to fade, darkness quickly overtook him. His eyes closed, which left a satisfying smirk to creep across James's lips. All of that brings us to this current moment. Travis is still sitting here in the dark room, still trapped to that wooden chair.
Where the fuck are you, James? The least you can do is show me your face, you coward.
Tisk, tisk, tisk. Now, is that any way to speak to another person? But I suppose that if you were a decent human being, then we wouldn't find ourselves in this predicament, now would we?
Who is there?
Travis yells.
Oh, I would not expect you to know who I am. But I do believe that you and my brother have been introduced.
The light abruptly turned on to reveal James standing directly in front of him.
Surprise!
James shouts. A wicked grin plastered to his face. Travis makes a deep, hacking noise before saliva lands on James's face.
You think you will get away with this, you spineless guppy?
Travis chuckles. From behind Travis came the glitter of a knife. He received 2 quick and fairly deep cuts. The unfamiliar voice speaks once more, this time from directly behind him.
Consider this the introduction to your current circumstance. If you insult me and or my brother again, then you shall receive cuts for every one. If you lie to us, then you will also receive a cut. However, if you can humble yourself enough to tell us the truth, well, you may just walk out of this with your life. But I doubt you're capable of that.
Finally, stepping back from the shadows, the unfamiliar voice morphs into a person to reveal James's sister, Katie.
And who the hell are you?
I am the mother of the child who was murdered by that piece of shit you defended. That is who I am. I should give you another cut for that, but I will give you a pass this time. I did forget to explain one thing to you, though. The more blood you lose, the more the container below you collects. Once you lose enough blood, it will trigger the pressure plate. And if that happens, well, you'll just have to see this for yourself.
Katie points upward, knife still in hand, causing Travis to look up. He sees a net filled with a lot of large rocks.
Sticks and stones will break your bones, and words will set you free. Let us begin with the first question. Did you or did you not spend the last 10 years treating my brother like your whipping boy?
Travis opens his mouth to protest, yet he looks at James.
I was not that bad of a boss, was I?
He asks. James calmly looks at Travis before a guttural laugh leaves his throat.
Not that bad. Not that bad.
James yells.
You never once gave me a holiday off, and you would dock my pay if I had to leave work early due to a family emergency. You were then, as you are now, a monster. A monster and, quite frankly, an absolute nightmare to work for.
Travis becomes angry at the sight of this man who is lesser than him, laughing and mocking him.
Listen here, you little shit. You are a terrible employee, always whining about your family, your hours, and not being able to have holidays off. If you had put in just a little bit more effort into your job, then maybe, just maybe, I'd have treated you better.
Katie's amused expression rapidly fades as she glances at her brother.
Do you want to do the honors, or should I?
She inquires. James reaches out, his hand grabbing the knife from his sister with a sick smile on his lips.
This one's all me.
He says. James walks over to where his boss is being forced to sit. He roughly cuts the shirt from his boss's torso.
What are you doing?
Travis furrows his brows as he attempts not to scream. The blade easily glides along Travis's chest 5 separate times, which cause him to tense up a bit.
There is one thing that I want you to know just in case you think this is a joke. I reassure you, it is not. We are serious. You should know that. This is a fight for your life and not a silly game.
James sneers.
Okay. Now on to question 2. Do you feel guilty for setting free the people that have ruined others' lives by committing heinous crimes against them?
Honestly, no, I don't. I have done what I have done to achieve this lifestyle. I have become acquainted with it, and I would do it all over again.
Travis calmly looks at them. Katie looks at him with a curious expression on her face.
So you're admitting that you have tampered with evidence, threatened witnesses, and asked your clients to perjure themselves.
Katie coldly states,
Oh, what the hell? It's just us here, right? Yeah, I did it. And I loved every single second of it. You don't even understand the kind of adrenaline rush that you get from breaking the law while knowing full well that I would never be caught. Being the smartest person in the room does have its benefits after all.
You feel no remorse then? Not even a little guilt for all the lives you've ruined? Well, I must commend you for telling the truth. Your lack of empathy towards your fellow man cannot, no, it will not be overlooked.
She grabs the knife from her brother's weak grip, her lips pursed into a tight line, as the anger building within her struggles to be contained.
This one is all mine.
She walks over to Travis, one eager step at a time. Her feet stomp just before him. She calmly places the knife against his chest, firmly pressing the blade onto it until it pierces the flesh. The blade is slowly dragged down the entirety of his chest. Her cutting is slow and deep, which evokes a scream out of Travis, the likes of which they had not heard to this point.
Final question. Did you once hesitate to take that scumbag on as a client after finding out that he had killed my daughter, the niece of your employee, at the time? Or did you not even care about my brother and his family enough to do that? Did you only care about the money?
Travis looks at her. He thinks long and hard about how he could respond to this question. He knows it was inevitable for this exact question to come up, and he now knows that his answer determines whether he lives or dies.
Look, I know I've treated you and your family horribly. I deserve to be judged for my sins, but this is not how I should be punished. The court of law is how I should be punished. To answer your other question, though, yes, I do regret having to take on the case of your daughter's killer. However, my boss and his boss told me that I either win the case or I'd be fired. So as you may be able to see by now, I had no choice but to take this case.
Katie stares at Travis, weighing his words carefully.
I'm not sure you actually mean what you're saying. Yet, I do agree that you should be judged by a court of law for the crimes that you have committed. So, we will let you go, under 2 conditions. First, I don't expect you to not tell the cops about your unfortunate abduction. But my brother was only following my instructions. This was not his idea in any way, so I want his name to stay out of it. That part is mandatory. You don't get to choose.
Fine. If you want to take the blame for this, that's on you. I'll keep your brother's name out of this. What's your second condition?
Travis impatiently asks. That is the fun part in her eyes. A menacing smile crosses her face.
Well, as it is October, I thought it would be nice to keep with the holiday. So I have 2 doors for you to choose from. The first door says trick. You can go through that door if you want. But there is no guarantee you will get out alive.
She cackles.
Door 2 says treat. If you hit the upload button on the laptop sitting over there that has been recording our conversation, it has your confession on it. By uploading it to the police, the other door will unlock for you to get out safely, which will cause you to pay for your crimes. Now, make your choice and accept your fate.
Katie bends down. The blade of her knife glides underneath each tie that holds his limbs to the wooden floor. She is serious about giving him the chance to pay for what he has done. Travis, on the other hand, can't help but laugh at her. This woman must be delusional to offer him such a thing like that.
Do you honestly think for a moment that I would even consider uploading the stuff that I just told you? I would spend the rest of my life in jail.
Travis walks over to the door, labeled Stones. He pulls the door open and steps over the threshold, only to be hit in the stomach by a fast-moving and solid object. Travis is caught in the shoulder and then in the head several times as he is falling. His body hits the floor. Blood pours out of his head and he lays there limp and broken. His vision starts to blur as he hears Katie's sickening voice once more. Katie pressed the button, shutting off the pitching machine that had been hurling baseball-sized rocks at Travis. She then walks over to him and whispers in his ear,
Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words would have set you free.
She satisfyingly laughs.
What the hell, Katie? I thought we were planning on setting him free!
James shouts. He grabs his sister by her shoulders, shaking her to provoke a response. Katie quickly slaps her brother on the back of the head.
He set the killer of my daughter free. Did you really think he was going to live?
No, you're crazy. I'm going to the cops. You've lost your goddamn mind. This is not okay. You need help.
A loud bang fills the room as her brother turns to leave the room. James feels a sharp pain in his chest. He slowly looks down to see a small bullet wound, blood seeping out of the hole and running down his shirt. Katie walks over to him, a manic expression clouding her face.
My sweet, sweet brother, I am so sorry, but if you stand against me, you must die as well. Goodbye, my dearest brother.